Hi, everyone. It is Thursday, May 11th, and I know you thought I probably wouldn't be coming on tonight, but I just discovered that they've released the actual recordings of the opening statements. So I wanted to play those with you, do a little commentary because we've done some chatting about some of these items. I've watched them already. I'm going to watch them again with you guys. I noticed there were several areas in there that we had questioned. And I think the opening statements, watching them all the way through, has really clarified some things for me. So hopefully it'll help you guys too. All right. So, what was said today, basically, it's pretty short and sweet. There were a few things that the judge said in reading the jury instructions to the jury that I thought kind of stood out, and I wanted to share those with you. So, here we go. You must decide on the charges for each defender separately. For counts 1 through 6 in September. Oh, let me adjust my microphone. I apologize. Okay, count 7 on December 21st, the false respite of emergency. He said a defendant in any case is presumed to be innocent. You must not let bias affect your decision. He told them, do not use the internet for this case or study the facts of the law on your own. We know that. Both defenders are charged with the same crimes. The defendants are both being accused of manslaughter and red rum. You guys know what that is. I can't say it on YouTube. Did the persons testifying have an interest in the case or a relation to someone in the case? Did the witness admit they were untruthful? Only the witness's answers are evidence. Nothing the attorneys say is evidence. I'm glad he reestablished that. I think they said that in all the jury instructions, though. He said if he sustained a testimony or said it was stricken, the jury must not consider it. You may consider anything that may prove or disprove the witness's testimony, like how well they were able to testify, how well they were able to remember, what their demeanor was when they testified. You must decide if a fact has been proved by circumstantial evidence. If a conclusion points to innocence and one to guilt, you must consider the one that points to innocence. You've heard testimony from children. You should consider if what they're saying is the truth and consider their ability to perceive, communicate, and their development. Do not consider the fact that a dissent did not testify. Do not discuss the fact or consider that in any way. The defendants spoke before the trial began. It's up to you to decide how much you rely on their statements. You should not be biased against a defender because they have been arrested. The people have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. You must review your evidence throughout the entire case. You should not distrust the testimony of a child just because they are a child. You should consider the opinion of a child and decide if what they are saying is true and accurate. You may consider if the defendant had a motive and if they had a motive that would make them guilty, or if they did not have a motive that would make them not guilty. The amount of time for deliberation may vary person to person. A person may be guilty of a crime if they directly committed a crime or aided and abetted a perpetrator. Homicide is the killing of another person. Manslaughter and red rum are types of homicide. You must decide if what witnesses testified was true. Did the witness have contact with the person being accused? How closely was the witness paying attention? Was the witness under stress? How much time had passed? If you think the witness lied about something they said, you cannot believe the rest of what they said, or not believe the one thing they said and believe the rest of what they said. Do you guys want me to reread that? If you think the witness lied about something that they said, you cannot believe the rest of what they said, or not believe the rest of what they said, and believe the rest of what they said. The testimony of only one witness can prove a fact. I think that's really strong. The testimony of only one witness can prove a fact. He said police reports that are not admitted are not evidence and will not be available. Or once he finished the jury instructions, he again reestablished that the closing arguments would be on Tuesday at 9 a.m. I totally forgot about that when I was closing out last night. I was thinking, oh, we're going to go to deliberation. No, we got to do closing arguments. So, kind of wondering if they're going to show any of the closing arguments on video to anybody. It probably not. It's probably going to be that same thing where they'll show us a piece of it. But the fact that they've now released the opening statements is telling to me that we might be able to get some more information probably by next week. More actual videos of things that went on in the trial. And he said that the prosecution will go first and last for closing arguments. So this beautiful photo that someone put together on Facebook, I guess they've said, I've asked if I could use it, and I think they're fine. So I want to thank her. Her name is, in case you guys want to go check her out, her name is Latoya Spry. I think she's been posting a lot for the kiddos. And also, I love my wife, 0007. She's posted a lot on the kids, just different comments and whatnot. Okay, so thank you for allowing me to put that up. I'm going to put that up right now. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So let me take myself off the stream so you guys can see it. Isn't that just pretty the way they did that? The babies. I love that. Okay. Let's get to these videos of the prosecution. And I'm going to start with the prosecution's opening statements, since those happened a while back. Because some of the stuff that they've said really kind of refreshes your memory on what's going on here. And I think this is good too, because listening after they've presented the case, we'll be able to see, did they do what they said they were going to do in the openings? So let's get started.
All right. Good morning. Just some housekeeping things before I begin. I wanted to introduce the investigating officer in this case. That's Detective Thomas Hernandez from the Bakersfield Police Department. He was the one who took over the investigation from the California City Police Department. He'll be here throughout the trial as the investigating officer of where the Wests live. And so that's the reason for the large TV. You'll figure it out once we get through it, but it shows kind of a view of the house. You'll see the backyard, the house itself, and the street to the front. So the television is here because it has better quality than kind of what you sense of that. You have the charges read to you in this case, essentially the murder of Orrin and Orson West by Trezell and Jacqueline West. That's the essence of the charge. And Orson West, there's your photos. Orrin to the left, Orson to the right.
And I don't know why it keeps skipping. I didn't do that. That's the way it came, so better than what we had before, though, right?
Their names when they were born were Sincere and Classic. They were adopted in the initially they were foster children, but that is Orrin and Orson West. Their bodies have never been found. Have never been found. Even with the attempts of the California City Police Department, the Bakersfield Police Department, the FBI, CHP helped, Kern County Sheriff helped as well. Their bodies have never been found. Now, they were adopted back in April of 2019. That's a photo you see up in the middle. That's actually the adoption ceremony. You can see the family of Trezell West there to the left in the yellow. That's Wanda West. She'll be testifying in this case. It's the mother of Trezell West. You also see Jacqueline, Trezell, and they're holding Orrin and Orson. Ultimately, you'll hear testimony in this case that the primary source of income that the Wests had during this time was from money they received from the state due to adoption.
Yep.
They actually had 4 children that were adopted. Each one of those children, they got around $1,000. So the primary source of income when they were living in Cal City was the $4,000 they were receiving for adopting these children from the state of California. The names of the other children you see there, Devin, Damien, and also Adrian and Aiden. Those are the biological children of the West. One of those children they got around $1,000. So the primary source of income when they were living in Cal City was the $4,000 they were receiving for adopting these children from the state of California. The names of the other children you see there, Devin, Damien, and also Adrian and Aiden. Those are the biological children of the West. This is some photos from Bakersfield. They did live in Bakersfield back prior to moving to Cal City. You can see them at the park. That's a family photo, all 6 kids. To the right, you can see them in their Halloween costume. These photos are from early 2020 and in 2019. They lived on Lotus Lane. They had an apartment there, apartment number 116. They actually all lived there, all 8 of them. And in the apartment to the other side of that same apartment building, they're in groups of 8 apartments per, was Jacqueline's mother, Maria Martinez, who will be testifying in this case as well. Sometime in May, they opened escrow on a house in California City. And then in September, that escrow closed and they began to move to California City. That is a photo of that residence that they lived at, 10717 Aspen Way. You'll see a lot of photos of that home, body-worn camera of the inside of that home. You'll hear about DNA tests of bedding from that home, of diapers from that home, but that is the home of the West in California City. Also to the right, you can see that is their Chevy van. You'll see that in a lot of surveillance footage. You will see that in photos from when crime scene analysts went through the vehicle. Now the case itself, just to kind of help you understand the evidence and how it will proceed in this case, it'll start with December 21st and then move back. December 21st is the day that they reported Orrin and Orson were missing. And from there, that's when the police began their investigation, and what they learned during that investigation and talking with the kids led them to move all the way back to September of 2020. But initially, when it was first reported by Trezell and Jacqueline, was December 21st of 2020.
10717 Aspen Avenue. House. Oh, I was wondering, did anybody call in, they found some children or something? They're black, little black, my sons, I can't find them. They were in the backyard earlier, and all of a sudden, I can't find them. I search property, I can't find them. They're all right.
No, how long have they been gone for?
It's too dark outside. Man, maybe, I don't know. I can't
When was
really
the
tell.
last time you saw them?
I was outside getting wood from the lot next door, so I saw them about 20 minutes ago maybe, but they're outside playing
How
around
old
in
are
the
they?
yard. 3 and 4.
What color clothing were they wearing?
So the youngest was wearing black sweater, black sweatpants, and the oldest was wearing black sweater, a black shirt, black sweater, long sleeve sweater, and some gray sweatpants.
That's the initial call that was received. It came in at 17:41 hours. That translates to 5:41 p.m. Officers were dispatched at 17:46 or 5:46 p.m. They were on scene at 17:48, which is 5:48. The officers that responded were Lieutenant Hightower, Officer Brian Hansen, Officer Anthony Cabriolas, Officer Joshua Flores from the California City Police Department. They all began to search for Orrin and Orson.
What are their names?
Orrin and Orson.
Which one's the trio?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The trio, this is his name?
The 3 are all, he's Orson.
O-R-S-O-N?
Yes, ma'am.
And Orrin?
Orrin.
O-R-O-N?
Yes, O-R-R-I-N.
R-R-I-N, okay.
So where they receive this information from Trezell, they show up on scene, they know they're looking for a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. Now, just to give a sense of kind of what we're looking at, this is in the area of the home at 10717 Aspen Avenue. The area he's speaking about playing in the backyard, you can see it here, and there is actually a fence in the upper northeast corner of that yard. And that'll become relevant as we go through this. Let me move this, I apologize. There's a fence in the upper northeast corner. That'll become relevant because that's where Trezell West is saying Orrin and Orson, a 3- and 4-year-old, exited late that evening from a cement slab on the backyard. So police came, they began to search the home, they began to search the lot next to it, and there was no sign of Orrin and Orson. As I was saying, there is camera footage from a house to the west. This is the footage, and you're going to see a lot of it. You're going to see hours of it. But this is the footage from the house that's at 10649 Aspen Avenue. This is the west residence off to the east of the home. This is when police actually show up. That's Brian Hansen, and you can see Jacqueline and Trezell as they come to approach. So that's the police. They come, they hear what they have to say. They begin to look for Orrin and Orson. They look in the neighborhood. They look in the house. They look in the yards next door. And there was no signs of them anywhere. They got assistance from local civilians. They got assistance from the Kern County Sheriff Department Search and Rescue. To the right of that slide, you can actually see the flight path that the CHP helicopter used as it did circles in the sky, further and further away from the home, looking for Orrin and Orson all the way into the desert. And there was no sight of them. There was agencies from all over that were assisting, people all over that were assisting. They had to call CPS. This is from a CPS referral. There's so many things going on. There's even miscommunication that go on. You'll see in this, and this will be evidence in this case, that there's mention that there is video footage of the 2 children walking down the street. There's no footage of them ever walking down the street. You'll hear from officers that combed for surveillance footage. At no point was any footage found that had Orrin and Orson walking down the street.
I'm so glad he clarified
The video
that.
I just talked about, the house to the west. Again, we're going to see a lot of it. See that there is no cars that drive up, no people that walk up to that home, nobody that could come and abduct Orrin and Orson, and there is no footage showing them walking away from the home. California City Police, that when they were out there that night, they went to the neighbor. They tried to look through their surveillance footage. They went in the area looking for other people that had any camera footage. I want to play this next portion. This is initially kind of the information they were getting from Trezell.
Okay. You're working in corner, you're back facing back there. Yeah. And you just want to work in this area. Okay. So there, you're right there, you're going to go over and did you enter back from the fence?
Yeah, I was going to do that.
Okay. Now, the last time you came in, did you try to lock it?
No, the last time I went in, I went in to go check to see if I was moved away from the fireplace. I was started inside. So, it did not look like we were close. I did close it to like it was close and the dogs was there. So, but when I came out, it was already open. So I'm kind of assuming that.
Now, what's going to become important in this case is details. Things that are said and things that don't ring true based on the evidence in this case. You heard Trezell said that he left the gate open or closed it to the point where his dogs wouldn't get out. But then when he went out, the gate was open. Well, video pictures from that night, you can see when first responding officers came, the gate was actually closed. They ultimately asked Trezell, who closed the gate? He said, I didn't, Jacqueline did. They asked Jacqueline, who closed the gate? She said, I didn't, he did. And again, they're starting to see inconsistencies in what they're saying, what Trezell is saying, what Jacqueline is saying. You'll see that in the evidence in this case. They also look at the gate itself because he said he closed it enough to where his dogs couldn't get out. but when he came out, it was open. So they tested that gate to see how hard it was to open.
I'm gonna start now. Go ahead, recording.
Again, these are 3- and 4-year-old that are supposedly opening the gate. You just saw that it took a grown man some effort to even open. So again, they're noting inconsistencies in what Trezell is saying, in what Jacqueline is saying to them. The cement slab, there was drawing with some chalk. They did see chalk on a cement slab, but Officer Hansen also noted that there was no children's footprints, anything consistent with children's footprints in the dirt. He did see footprints consistent with an adult, but nothing consistent with a child walking through the dirt that was between the cement slab and the gate that led out to the field. This is just a kind of overview of the surveillance footage that they either viewed that night or were able to recover in the following days. Jesse Dobbins, he will be testifying in this case. He lives across the street at the time. He had a Nest camera on the front of his house. He didn't have the full service with Nest, but he had a camera. And that camera caught some activations that night. And this will become important as it relates to the timing of it. There was an activation at 5:12, at 5:38, and at 5:51. Now, Mr. Dobbins, like I said, lives directly across the street from the West residence. And so his Nest camera looks out across the street, somewhat to the yard to the right, but a lot of the house of the West. You will see based on the surveillance footage that 5:12 is consistent with the time that Trezell was out getting wood from the yard next to it. 5:38 is consistent with the time frame of when Trezell returned from searching for the kids. 5:51 is consistent when law enforcement arrived on scene. There is no activation for any other movement based on what Jesse Dobbins will testify to. The house that is to the west, again, this is 10649. Put a circle around it, but this is that evening. You'll have to do math when we go through it, but it's 57 minutes slow. So this is at approximately 5:09. And you'll see this up in the corner. This is the area with the fence. I'll use that area. You can see an individual pulling items in and out of the yard through the fence. So Trezell West was outside pulling wood in and out through the fence. At some time around 16:20 hours or 5:17 p.m. in real time, that's the last time when Trezell went into the house. That's the time frame he said that he last saw the children. When he returned a short time later, they were gone. That's where you're going to hear Mr. West say in this case. For approximately 10 minutes in the home, you will see that he enters his van and begins to drive around the area. At about 6 minutes later, he returns from driving, goes in the house, and that's when the call is made that you heard earlier. There's also footage from a neighbor that lived to the northeast area on Rome Beauty Drive. Mr. Robert Avalar, he will be testifying in this case. That's footage from his home. It looks out towards the desert area, which is near the end of Aspen Avenue. He said that evening, you can see a picture of him to the left. This is Mr. Avalar here. He was outside. He did not see any children walking into the desert. There's also footage that was recovered from 108th Street. It's a white rectangle where showing the coverage of a Ring camera. That's Mr. Trezell West's van driving around the neighborhood. Now again, it's the inconsistencies which lead the officer to investigate, which keeps them talking to Jacqueline and Trezell West. They search the backyard. This is another look of the backyard facing the home. And based on some statements by Jacqueline, they actually take a cadaver dog out into the backyard. And you can see the dog there, that's Sadie. She does note that there is something there, but what her handler says is it was confused interest. But nonetheless, based on what Jacqueline said to them, a cadaver dog was taken out there and had some notification based on what that dog smelt. Now the FBI went through that yard, went through the dirt, dug, all those things. No bones were ever found, no body parts were ever found, but the dog did alert or have confused interest at that location. Now what truly began the investigation, you'll hear this through Officer Hansen and also the other 4 children of Jacqueline and Trezell, when they were spoken to the early morning hours of December 22nd, 2020, it's what they said that led to the investigation. To your left, that's Adrian. That's the oldest biological son of Jacqueline and Trezell. He was 10 at the time. He was asked specifically about December 19th, because that's when they had gone to Wanda West's house, the grandmother's house. They were not home the evening that Jacqueline and Trezell reported Orrin and Orson missing. They were actually in Bakersfield visiting family members. So they were asked, were Orrin and Orson with you when you came to Wanda West's house in Bakersfield December 19th? Adrian said no. He was interviewed multiple times. You'll hear this through a Sonia Barton and also Adrian, that his mother had told him that Orson and Orrin were over at his grandmother's, or Maria Martinez. He told them that Orrin and Orson had left before September, that they went to grandmother's house a couple days after we moved to California City. So again, they're getting a sense of not only were they not in the van on December 19th, that they hadn't been in the home in California City also. To the right, that is Aiden, another biological son of Jacqueline and Trezell. He was asked who was in the car on the trip to Bakersfield December 19th. He said his brothers. And you'll hear evidence when that was clarified. By brothers, who do you mean? Devin, Damien, and Adrian. Again, this is Aiden stating that Orrin and Orson were not in the vehicle on that trip December 19th. He was asked why Orrin and Orson didn't move to the house. And evidence will show in this case, he said because they cry a lot. And that his mom and dad said they went to the place where they used to live. Again, the investigators are hearing this from not just 1, but 2 children now. That they were not in the home in California City and that they had been taken somewhere else. Moving on to Damien and Devin. Damien, very young at the time, but he was asked, did they move to the house? He said yes, but then they left. They were there only a little day, only 1 day. So again, Orrin and Orson were at California City, but only for 1 day, and then they were gone. So at this point, there's 3 children of Jacqueline and Trezell saying that Orrin and Orson were at California City only for a short period of time, or not at all. Moving on to Devin. He was asked, when's the last time he saw Orrin and Orson? He said at the apartment. Again, the apartment's in Bakersfield, not in California City. Asked if Orrin had gone somewhere else, he said, Orrin went somewhere else. He went to mom's grandma. So again, 4 children of Jacqueline and Trezell, all 4 said that they were not with them when they went December 19th, and they hadn't even been with them in California City. This is a Facebook post that you will see related to Jacqueline West. This is the day after, I'll go back, the day after these interviews of the 4 boys. The next day, or that same day, they were informed essentially what Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien had said. And this is a message that she sent to Wanda West, who had contact with the boys. Jacqueline said, please tell them we love them and miss them. And she also said, the boys need to ask for a lawyer if they want to talk to them again. I don't want them twisting whatever they are saying. So the officers take that information September 19th. They began to look through the footage. They began to look at that van to see, can we see if any kids are getting in? Can we see if 4 are getting in? Can we see if 6 are getting in? What can we see? That's footage, kind of a screenshot of the footage from, you can see on December 19th at 11:35 plus 57 minutes. That's when people enter that van and drive to Bakersfield. Ultimately, the question will be up for you as jurors, how many children entered that van that day. Return time, 15:44 or 3:44 plus 57 minutes. Again, that's the return of Jacqueline and Trezell to the home that day. The total trip time was 5 hours and 9 minutes. Now, you'll hear testimony about that trip, where they went. They went to a home on Potomac, 1109 Potomac. That's Wanda and Philip West's home. And from there, they went to Strata Credit Union, which is on Truxton and South 8th Street. They then took Wanda home because she had gone with them to Strata. They went to a gas station and to Superior Grocers before they went home. So that's just kind of a list of all the places they went. At none of those places, on any of the surveillance footage, were Orrin and Orson ever seen. You'll hear from Wanda. She'll say she didn't hear the kids in the car. She didn't see them. She didn't necessarily look for them, but she didn't see them in the car. So Wanda West, who got in at the home at 1109 Potomac, all the way to Strata Credit Union, all the way back, at no point being in the car did she hear Orrin, did she hear Orson, or did she see any evidence of them in the car. This is that van. I circled it going to Strata Credit Union, again, Truxton and South H. This is Jacqueline and Trezell at the Gasco. That's at East California and Mount Vernon. Again, no sign of the children. December 19th, this is Superior Grocers. That's on Union and East California. I circled that Chevy van. It's quite recognizable, the van itself. We'll watch the video. It's there for about 20 minutes. At no point does Orrin and Orson ever exit that van, or are they seen. Now moving forward to December 28th. At that point, the oldest son of Jacqueline and Trezell is re-interviewed by Sonia Barton. Who is Sonia Barton? She works for CPS. She's not a law enforcement officer. She interviews children. That's what she does. But on that date, she speaks to Adrian. That's a screenshot of him there sitting on the couch, December 28th of 2020. On that date, he told Sonia Barton that while they were still living at the apartment in Bakersfield, he heard noises in the night coming from Orrin. The first person to find Orrin in the morning was his parents. What he saw was Orrin. His color was fading. There was throw up coming out of his nose. And ultimately, he died at the apartment there on in Lotus Lane in Bakersfield. He told Sonia Barton, and also later in his testimony, that Trezell and Jacqueline did not call for any medical care for Orrin. Trezell went to grab something that looked like some form of medical device, maybe a stethoscope, but ultimately they didn't discuss getting medical care for Orrin. They let him die. What they did is they discussed keeping it a secret. Adrian, both in his interview and ultimately in later testimony, they asked him, that being Jacqueline and Trezell, if they should tell somebody or keep it a secret. And what you'll hear testimony is, through Adrian, is that he knew if they told somebody, they would be taken away from their parents. Now, as for Orson, again, this is based on what you'll hear in evidence in this case on Adrian's prior statement and testimony. Orson was in California City for about 4 days. At some point, Adrian heard a loud thud in the night. The day prior to hearing the thud, Orson was there. The day after the loud thud, Orson was gone, and he hasn't seen him since. He believed that Orson was taken back to his grandma's. Now again, the time frame of that interview with Sonia Barton, that's December 28th. This is a call that was heard between Jacqueline, Trezell, and Adrian about 1 week later.
We're trying really, really hard to get theirs back. We really are. But some things were said, and we just got to prove to them that it's not true, And look, I just want you to know, you don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, okay? I don't want nobody to tell you what to say, nothing like that.
No.
You don't have to talk to nobody. I know they've been asking you a lot of questions, but if you don't want to talk to them, you don't have to, baby. Okay.
And as I said before, those 4 boys will be coming in to testify in this case. But that's their mother, Adrian's mother, about 1 week after he told them, the police, what had happened at the apartment in Bakersfield, trying to get him not to talk. Now, again, based on the information that they received, the officers began to go back and see if they can interview anyone that did see Orrin or Orson. They talked to the realtor, Robert Dees. He had gone out there prior to the West moving. He remembers seeing 5 children. He also specifically remembers 4 boys playing and 1 boy was mad, kind of with his arms crossed. He ultimately identified Orson as being there, but he only saw 5 children at California City. Now the pest control individual, Joseph Karsham, he recalled 6 to 7 when he went in the home September 15th, but ultimately when they went out to the Chevy van, because he wanted to spray the house, he saw 3 to 4 children walking out and 1 being carried out. Again, the math on that is 5 children. Maria Martinez, she was asked about whether or not she had seen Orrin and Orson from the date of moving to December 21st. When she was first interviewed, she didn't even know the names of Orrin and Orson. She said that she did not watch Orrin or Orson from September forward. And also, she told them about the time that she had visited October 10th and also some video calls. But when she was pressed on it, she ultimately says, I think they were there. I believe they were there. I can't be 100% sure because right there, I didn't see them. I didn't see their faces. They also asked the sister, Perla Martinez. And ultimately what she said through testimony is, and you'll hear her testimony in this case, she did have some video calls, but the camera moved around and she didn't really know who she was looking at or who was who. She does remember seeing Aiden specifically, but that's all she remembers. So again, the police are trying to develop, at any point, has anyone seen Orrin and Orson? I'm going to go through the timeline, a specific timeline of the move to California City. September 11th, that's when they got the keys from the realtor, Robert Dees. September 15th, that's when the pest control individual, first name Joseph, went to the house. September 17th, 2020, they went out to Cal City. And then I highlighted this date because it's going to become important in this case. September 18th, 2020, that's the day that Wanda West went out to Cal City to watch the boys so that Trezell and Jacqueline could move. Well, when she went out to California City to watch the boys, that did not include Orrin and Orson. That was only Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien. September 18th, that's when Jacqueline and Trezell drive from California City to Bakersfield to pick up a U-Haul. Wanda West stays with the 4 boys. Again, Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien. She had no sight of Orrin and Orson. She believed that they were at the grandmother's, Maria Martinez, in Bakersfield. And again, Maria Martinez will testify she did not watch Orrin and Orson. September 18th, they return. This is the U-Haul that they return in. The van itself stays in Bakersfield. Jacqueline and Trezell return to California City in this van. You'll hear testimony that it's a 2-seater. There is no space for children. There is no space for Orrin and Orson. There will be cell phone footage in this case.
Did you hear what they said about the van? Let me back that up a little bit. I remember when we were looking at this, I was questioning the size of it and if there was any kind of, usually the one that we had rented before had like a front seat that went all the way across. This apparently has like a 2-seater front seat, like a front of a van would have, right? But there's no back. It's just 2 front seats and that's it. Okay, moving on.
There is no space for children. There is no space for Orrin and Orson. There will be cell phone footage in this case, kind of give a sense of the trips back and forth, because it becomes important, their trips back and forth, because Wanda West helps them unload the vehicle. helps them watch the kids, takes Trezell to McDonald's, does these things, and at no point does she see Orrin and Orson over the weekend of the 18th to the 20th. During that weekend, Trezell and Jacqueline are back and forth to Bakersfield in the U-Haul, picking up items. And again, Wanda West believes that Orrin and Orson are at Maria Martinez. There's going to be a lot of video in this case, but listen specific to what Jacqueline says about where Orrin and Orson are when they're moving. She says that Orrin and Orson are with her when they're moving. This is just showing some more back and forth between Bakersfield and California City. Ultimately, again, September 19th and 20th, Wanda and the four boys helped Trezell unload the U-Haul. Again, no sight of Orrin or Orson. On September 20th, Trezell and Wanda returned the U-Haul in California City. On September 20th, again, Trezell and Wanda come back to the house. Jacqueline, Trezell, Wanda, the four boys are all there. They hang out for a while. At no point is Orrin and Orson present. On that same day, Trezell and Wanda drive back to the apartments on Lotus Lane. Once they get there, Trezell gets in the van, drives out, gets on the freeway, and goes home. Again, at no point during this time are Orrin and Orson seen. You'll see through the evidence in this case that lines up directly with what Adrian said, the timeline, when Orrin and Orson went missing. July 25th, 2020, this is a photo of Orrin West. This is the last known photo ever taken of Orrin. It's recovered from the cell phones that were seized in this case. This is the last known photo of Orson, taken in the apartment at Lotus Lane, July 25th, 2020. Now, during one of the interviews, and it'll be played for you here, Jacqueline West talks about how she talked to her kids about Orrin and Orson. She said, "I told them, pretend they're not here. Just act like they don't live here. Just go do your work." She talked about what she did with Orrin and Orson. "I always keep them separated. I keep them separated. I focus mainly on schooling while they're playing. They don't really play together. But they have played together. I just don't know." But that's essentially what happened to Orrin and Orson. They were in that home, but they were kept separate. And then ultimately, sometime in September, they were killed and have not been seen since then. I've spoke about it, there'll be a lot of surveillance footage we look at. There will be a lot of interviews that we look at. Interviews of Jacqueline, interviews of Trezell. A lot of details that we will be going over. Things that they said, things that changed. And ultimately, the answer to the question of where are the boys will be answered, it's that they're dead. And at the end of the case, I will ask you to return a verdict of guilty beyond a reasonable doubt as to Trezell and Jacqueline for the murders of Orrin and Orson West. Thank you.
All right. I think you did a good job of pinpointing the key factors. There were a couple of things that I was in question about. Again, I felt he clarified them. I like, the only thing, and I don't know, maybe there was, but I kind of wonder if there was a visual timeline up somewhere that the jury could look at to say, this is when the eldest son said this happened to Orrin, and over here, this is how it lines up with what he told this person or that person. And this is when this person or that person says they last saw Orrin and Orson, yada, yada. Oh my God, I just said yada, yada. And so on and so forth. You know what I mean? I just feel like if you're a visual person, that kind of stuff helps. All right. Okay, let's move on to Alexa Torres Stallings, the defense. Now, I have to say, you guys, I forgot about Hennessy. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to laugh because this trial is too serious, but that guy, I just don't know. He could have, like I said, he could have called in and been on Zoom. I don't know. Uh, let's listen to Alexa. In the meantime, I'll see if I can find something on him, but I I totally forgot about his. He's that bad.
Jackie was wrapping gifts for her 6 children in her brand new house in California City when her 2 youngest were taken.
That must be Fatima right there on the
Trezell,
right.
her husband of 13 years, was gathering wood to light a fire for Jackie and their 2 youngest children when they were taken. There are no confessions and there is no forensic evidence. All we have is a story of a 10-year-old boy, their eldest child. This is Jackie West, and this is Trezell West. And their 2 youngest children were taken. But their 4 oldest children is where our case begins. People versus the West. This timeline is going to be imperative. Throughout the trial, we have talked about December 21st, December 22nd, December 23rd, 24th, 5th, 6th, and 28th. And it is no different in the defense's case that timeline is going to be the timeline to evaluate. What you have heard at this point in time, which would have arguably been discussed in our timeline, is the investigation that was going on during that time. But there was a separate investigation that was also occurring at the same time that law enforcement was investigating, and that was Child Protective Services. When we look at December 21st and we evaluate the incidences that are the most relevant for the defense's case, we are looking specifically at where does the priming occur with Adrian. Priming is going to be a term that is going to be used by our child forensic psychologist expert, Dr. Susan Napolitano, who I will talk about in just a second. When we talk about December 21st, we've already heard testimony that there was a proof of life or a welfare check that was made at Wanda's residences when the boys were spending the night there. We have no information on how many officers were there, whether or not they were wearing uniforms, whether or not they were wearing patrol uniforms in patrol vehicles, spotlights, yelling. We have no information as to the proof of life call. But that essentially starts the priming. When we talk about December 21st, we have another entrance from another agency where CPS has now filed this emergency out referral. But remember what the referral was only for Orson and Orrin, general neglect, because there were 4 declarative statements that were made in that referral, that they went missing, that law enforcement was there, and that there was a video of them walking down the street. And because of the information that was provided to the referral, this prompted a 10-day general neglect call. Not immediate, not 3, not 5, 10 days. When we move on to the next day, December 22nd, 2020, this is a rough outline of the events that occurred as they related to the children. At approximately 7 or 8 a.m., Officer Hansen came and interviewed the children. You have seen those interviews now, of which most law enforcement have not seen. He was untrained. He had no formalized training, only on-the-job training to speak to children. Dr. Napolitano is going to talk about the fact that an individual should have some type of training when they speak with children in order to prevent any type of implantation that can then result in false allegations or false memory. Again, this is the beginning of the prime. Around 10 to 11 a.m., the FBI and Wanda have now taken the boys to the Jameson Center. We have this information as provided in Sonia Barton's first interview. She notes the time as she takes Adrian to go and interview him. Then we have a second interview of Adrian that was made almost 2 hours later, 12:55, also by Ms. Barton, that will be played now. At around 3 p.m., they were detained by CPS and taken from their parents. Some of you may recall the testimony that was already been provided by Clifton Taylor, the importance of a detainment and that a forensic interview happens after a detainment, because if not, the case, the juvenile dependency case, would be dismissed. Stakes were running high for CPS. On December 23rd, the next sort of priming is that we now know that Barton, Sonia Barton, and court social worker Pamela Castillo are involved in text communications. We addressed that with Ms. Barton because the importance of objectivity and a neutral mindset for a forensic interviewer is of the utmost importance, as will also be discussed by Dr. Napolitano. We know now that on December 23rd, the FBI went and did radar into the home of Aspen, of which there was no evidence, no human remains found.
So for you guys that have not been listening to the audio at all, but you've been listening to my updates, do you see what I mean about her? She's good. I mean, she's not on our side, but she is a really good defense attorney. So I give her kudos to that, but let's hope she doesn't win this one.
We also know that on December 23rd, the van was forensically analyzed by Mr. Bianca and Ms. Brown, of which there was no forensic evidence found. December 23rd is when the filing of this juvenile proceeding now takes it into the court system for the juvenile round, or when the detainment is officially filed. The boys are not going back to Wanda. They are not going back to the West residence. 25th, 26th, 27th. We have nothing. But remember when we talked about the first...
See, I don't understand why she's making such a big deal about them getting the kids taken away from them. I guess it's just like gaslighting, like trying to take the focus off of what the real issue is. That's the only thing I see here, is those kids were removed because there were issues. Those kids were removed properly. There's no question about that. There was questions that there was something going on in that home, and they did the right thing by taking those kids out right away.
First report with Sonia Barton, and we talked about how important that sometimes reporting in a caregiver situation or with another parent oftentimes goes without a report. So we do not know what, if any, information is going on within those 4 days. But what we do know, according to Adrian, is that he has access to an iPad, he has access to the internet, and he has access to find information about this case. And then the 28th occurs. We will know that at 8 a.m. there is a juvenile dependency matter going on in which court social worker Pamela Castillo is present along with the West. We will know that approximately around 9 a.m. there is some communication about the detention having issues with the initial contact. And then at 11 a.m. there is the first communication from Sonia Barton to Officer Hansen. You will later learn that in these delivered service logs, these are like reports akin to police reports that are kept by CPS, that Ms. Castillo tried to make contact with Officer Hansen and did not, and at a later point in time had only contacted the FBI, which then she lied to Officer Hansen that she had had any communication with any law enforcement at all. And then approximately 3:36 is Adrian's third interview. we have heard no circumstances in which or how that first report was made. Who was present? When were they present? How were they present? Where were they present? Whether or not he had received any information prior to hand, whether or not Miss Maribel Moreno was emotional. And all of this is going to be evaluated and examined by our expert, Dr. Susan Napolitano. She is a child forensic psychologist leading in her field for nearly 30 years. But unlike other experts, Dr. Napolitano has a unique perspective in that at one point in time, she too was a forensic interviewer. And now she examines forensic interviews at the bequest of the prosecution, the defense, the FBI, post-criminal or post-exoneration convictions. Her background is exemplary. She has had a numerous amount of time regarding training, peer review, and articles, written articles. When we talk about Dr. Napolitano, she is going to first talk about the history of forensic interviews. Why is it so important? Well, because the history of the forensic interview starts in the 1980s and the 1990s, with a slew of cases that were mass hysteria, child sex abuse cases, the McMartin cases. But not only did that case occur, but Kern County, we uniquely sit in the history of forensic interviews with the Stoll case. It still remains the largest and longest and most expensive trial in the state of California. In those cases, these specific cases that have come as a result of forensic interviews, nearly all of them have now since been exonerated. So she is going to talk about the importance of the history of forensic interviews and how it changed the landscape, the policies, the procedures, and what is needed for a good forensic interviewer. Because at the end of the day, the only goal for a forensic interviewer is to be in a fact-finding mission. Confirmation bias is another topic that she will talk about, and how confirmation bias will seep into an investigation and ultimately bleed over to the forensic interviewer when it is there. Confirmation bias, if you're not looking for it, you won't see it. That's essentially what confirmation bias is. If you intend on only seeing one aspect of a case, you will miss everything else, like used diapers. So she is going to talk about the importance of confirmation bias and how when it initiates or is the inception of an investigation, that it can then permeate into the rest, which ultimately can lead into a forensic interviewer. And as a result of that, she will state that this misinformation can then blend into the interview with the child. What does that then provide? Well, it provides false memories or false allegations. In reviewing the totality of the interviews that Dr. Napolitano is going to testify, she is going to look at certain data points. The outline that has already been addressed is an outline or a data point in which she is going to review. But she is going to take into consideration Hanson's videos, as in 1 and 2. She is also taking into consideration Adrian's first interview with Sonia Barton on the 22nd, as well as Sonia Barton's second interview. What she is going to say, what she's going to testify to, is that Sonia Barton's second interview is an inherently suggestible, that she is browbeating the child until they can acquiesce into what she wants him to say. Again, priming for that subsequent and last interview on the 28th. But by that point in time, it is too late. He has been primed, and the statement has already been made. And then after this, it becomes repeated questions after repeated questions after repeated questions from law enforcement, from the DA's office, from grand jury testimonies to trial. Now, before all of you, he has been primed for the last 3 years. He has not seen his parents. They have not seen their parents or talked to them for the last year. He has been in the home or the custody of 2 people, Miss Moreno and Miss Iziaga. And as testified to earlier, law enforcement, Detective Hernandez and others have been going in and out and interviewing him. Testimony is going to be another key data point that she is going to evaluate. There will be someone here to read the grand jury testimony, and you will see that there is a comparison how Adrian reacts to both the grand jury testimony and to the trial after the break. That is going to be a key data point in which she is going to use for her evaluation. What she will ultimately, there will be someone here to read the grand jury testimony, and you will see that there is a comparison how Adrian reacts to both the grand jury testimony and to the trial after the break. That is going to be a key data point in which she is going to use for her evaluation. What she will ultimately conclude, taking everything, all of the data points that she has evaluated, these videos, these transcripts, and her 30 years of experience, she is going to conclude that there was implantation, coercive techniques, and that because of it, he was more susceptible to the likelihood of false allegations and false memories. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here, it's not peas. It's not peas. From there, we are going to move on to our next expert, Christopher Armstrong. Christopher Armstrong comes before you also with 30 years experience, but his experience is unique in that he has an engineering background. He also, what he does for a living is a forensic accident reconstructionist. Now I understand that some of you are thinking, where does this come into play? Well, it's going to come into play with the videos that you folks have been watching at 10649 Aspen Avenue. The videos that were acquired by Detective Detective Ryan on December 27th were then later enhanced by the FBI. Mr. Armstrong just took the videos and enhanced them a little bit more. He also was able to enhance, zoom, and take a still of December 19th, 2020. The video in which Detective Ryan says there's only two adult individuals and 4 children going into the car. But when you look, and you will be able to see it on the large screen TV, but when you look at the still image that is going to be provided to you, it is apparent that there is an individual carrying something or someone, of which none of this was done by the FBI or by law enforcement. What he's also going to talk to you folks about is the video of the car in which no one saw
I can't wait
prior
to see
to
these
the
videos
opening with Mr.
that
Hennessy.
he's magically enhanced.
But that car that he is going to testify and talk to had a unique light source, aka the headlights, in which he can evaluate with his expertise that the lights were going from low to high, high to low, and low again, insinuating that a vehicle stopped, reversed, and went forward again. Now, the other aspect of his testimony is going to be the videos themselves, because at the end of the day, you cannot see the children walk through the video. But that isn't, and that has nothing to do, has something to do with the quality of the actual video, but it actually has everything to do with how we perceive, how we see things. And he's going to talk about contrast ratios and why they're important when you evaluate and look at these types of videos. He's also going to talk about luminosity studies that law enforcement could have done to determine whether or not these videos were accurate, to see if you could have seen a child walk across the field or not, which can only be done during the anniversary of the event. But we are several years from that event, so it could have been done, not once, but twice. He's going to talk about how the contrast ratios in videos, that the way that a person dresses, their stature, their ethnicity, will all be data points in which he will take into consideration when he's evaluating those videos. At the conclusion of our case, it is still a tragedy. While the defense experts will give you folks insight, they're not going to answer all of the questions. The outstanding question of where the boys are will still be remaining. And as Mr. Hennessy said, it is still going to be a tragedy. But we believe that at the conclusion of our case, that if reasonable doubt is not already apparent enough, that you will have reasonable doubt and you will provide the only reasonable and just verdict of not guilty on all counts. Thank you. Let's begin.
Boom. She dropped that bomb, didn't she? She's pretty good. Okay, bless his heart. I found Hennessy. Let's do that one. I got to share screen on it because, like I said, I'd forgotten about him when I was prepping for this. And okay, I'm being mean. I hate that I'm being mean. But by gosh, I don't like who he's representing.
Let's start this from the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Trezell West. This is Jacqueline West. And their two sons are missing. Their sons, Oren and Orson, are missing. And we're here because it's easier to charge them than for them to explain why they couldn't find them. They've been married 12 years in March. Trezell will explain, and you'll hear in the interview, that when he first met Jacqueline, her understanding of love and their love together changed his whole perspective on things. It changed how he saw religion. He goes into it with the detectives. That love manifested into a little family of 8. And they were proud of the life they had built and moved out to the desert and got themselves a little house. This is COVID times. Some people hoard toilet paper. Some people drank and knit. And other people's kind of moved on from urban areas because they saw the system come to a halt. That is what the West did. They went out to Cal City to try to be self-reliant. And let's face it, out in Cal City, they are unique. They are a biracial family of 8 made up of couples of brothers that are also biracial. They are an artist and a producer who are trying to be self-reliant out in Cal City, who homeschool their children, and yes, primarily make $4,000 a month to support that family of 8 for taking care of children none of us were taking care of.
AKA,
this is suspicious to Cal City.
They were unemployed.
And you can see that from the start of this investigation. This is all suspicious to them. And with uniqueness also comes oddness sometimes. And you can see in the interviews when they talk to Cal City, sometimes they say some odd things, but they are always forthright. They are always sharing everything with Cal City PD because they want to be removed as suspects so they can find their boys. And sometimes they say some things that are true, but Cal City doesn't want to hear. In the spirit of openness, Jackie explains sometimes she forgets their anniversary. That's a Trezell thing. Trezell explains it is easier and more hygienic to sit down when he pees. That is the level of openness they are giving Cal City PD so they can check them off and find their kids.
Okay, that's TMI though. Really, really.
They started adopting because they heard about brothers that get torn apart in the system. They didn't know family members could get separated in the system. And Trezell, working as a security guard, realizes all he's getting done is getting paid to stop homeless people from stealing food, and decides, you know what, why don't I spend my time trying to help kids? And when he gets there, he starts to realize there's not a lot of males in the system, let alone males of color, let alone black males who are going to be fathers to black children in the system. He tells this to detectives. That is why he got involved. He also explains to the detective that once you get involved, after about 60 some odd kids come ripping in and out of your house, after a teenager puts hands on you in your own house, you start to feel different. You have to kind of compartmentalize. And Jacqueline says the same thing. And because of this, they love their children, but love that gets drugged through the system is a little bit different. Cal City doesn't like that. And they'll say it in the interview. And although they have no experience with adoption or fostering, they don't really like some of the answers they're getting. Trezell explains the reason why he got Orrin and Orson and why he was so proud of them is they were two little black boys just like him. And he was going to be a father to them, and he was going to raise them and be there for them. And then he's in his backyard and they go missing. And now he's sitting here on trial because they can't answer where the boys went. And they can't account for this. This is the video as explained in the opening. We know up in here, this is not as good. The TV's gone, but my body would have blocked the TV. You're going to get a chance to see this. We'll go through this later. As we've heard, we're going to review all this footage. Up in here, we know that is where Mr. West is doing yard work. I'll start this. This is getting around the time, right? The mark when we know. And we know that Mr. West turns the lights on once they've realized the children are missing. I want you to look right up here. You'll see some light. Something going on right here. And keep paying attention because eventually whatever's causing that is going to show itself. Because Mr. West says once he knows it happened all so fast, he's telling officers he thinks it might be 3 minutes, which I don't like. So the light source is back, and now what's causing that reveals itself. That is a car going down 108, leaving the area. This is the West house. That's a car leaving the area about at the end of the block from their house. You will now notice we're in the time, Mr. Smith pointed out, the 6:20 where he leaves to start to begin that the boys are missing. And we're about a minute out from this light turning on. So they can't explain that. I'm willing to bet most officers don't even know about that. And you'll see in the interviews, they think the 3-minute estimate he gives them is too small. They hear him talk about it. About a minute out from that car leaving. We know the light goes on when they've started to realize that they are not in the yard and they are not inside. About a minute and a half from when that car went by. Something else they don't have answers for. There's give or take 41 registered sex offenders in Cal City. It means 41 individuals we put on a list because they are a risk to children. They don't talk to any until January 1st. That's not the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, the 31st. I'm not going to put this down, but you know the first comes next. That's when they talk to sex offenders. And all of them know they went to 4 houses. They talked to 2. One, they talked to the person's mom. That apparently was enough for them. And then they talked to a roommate. The others, they don't have an answer for that. Before they ever do this, they get a call from someone named Hector Rodriguez. He tells them he's got information. He wants to talk to an agent. He's worried for his safety. Tells them you need to check a house in Blythe, but I need someone to talk to me. They check the house in Blythe. They don't ever contact him. Hector Rodriguez, with that same birth date, is a sex offender in Kern County who's been out of compliance since 2009. They don't talk to him. He went to them. Got glossed over a little bit, but there is, in the initial paperwork from CPS, when this is starting to develop, as well as in official filings, the definitive statement, there is video footage of the children walking down the street. And now everyone's like, oh, you'll see them. No one really knows where that came from. No one knows who said it, why it's written so definitively. They'll tell you they wrote that, meaning that's like a suggestion of something they're hoping to find. It's pretty definitive. It's in a court filing. They won't be able to explain that. A woman in Texas called them. That's fine. Let's continue. Texas, a woman calls and says around Christmas time she sees two little black boys in the neighborhood. She says eventually she meets them and she is told their names are Orrin and Orton. And a man corrects him and says, no, your name's Derek. That's never followed up on. Just also, they don't have answers for how inconsistent some of this investigation is. There will be cops that will say there's no diapers, but there is diapers. There will be officers that say there's no chalk, well, there is chalk. There will be officers that say there wasn't clothes, well, there is clothes. There will be officers that say there was no toothbrushes, there were toothbrushes. There'll be some officers who rely on the fact that the dogs didn't smell the boys specifically. You will hear from the dog handler that the dog smells cadavers or humans. The dogs that were there were not trained to smell individuals specifically. And she'll tell you when she was there the first night, the dog couldn't do much because the area had so many people walking around through the yard, it was contaminated. And she'll tell you the only job they gave her was follow the route that Trezell's van took to see if the dog finds body parts. That's the first night. Also, the videos we will discuss about boys, the family coming or the family going, even by the officer's account, they can only identify 3 boys. There's issues with that footage. There's issues with these interviews. They're inconsistent. The boys are inconsistent from what they're saying. They contradict what adults that were in Cal City say. They retract things they've said. They've gone back on certain statements. They conflict with each other. And what you will see is interview technique used by Officer Hansen is improper for children. And with Officer Hansen, it also extends to adults. That is a table. That is Miss West. That is his hand on her thigh. He never handled this investigation like she was the mother of missing sons. This was a tragic accident, is what the evidence will show. All right? They don't have an answer for it because it was tragic. But instead, Trezell is here on a murder charge. The bottom line is Cal City out the gate just never thought anyone would take 2 little black boys. That's why the investigation will look the way it did. This is Trezell West. This is Jacqueline West. And their 2 little boys are missing. Thank you.
The one thing that stood out to me, that what he said was, well, I guess he's focusing more in on, the investigators didn't do this, the investigators didn't do that. They were biased. They had their own opinions already. But one thing that stood out to me in his testimony or his opening statement was the fact that he just could not pronounce Trezell's name right. Trezell. It sounded like you were saying Trezell. I don't know. Anyway, that's that. So there we are. There will be no court tomorrow, Friday. There will be no court Monday. You guys will not hear from me again until Tuesday when they do the closing arguments. Now, possibly, oh my gosh, cross your fingers. What if we could actually have video and audio that we're able to stream next Tuesday? I don't think it's going to happen, but if it is, I'm definitely checking into it to see if it's possible. But I will not break the law. I mean, they've said no up until now, but if anything changes, I'll be on top of it. I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Okay. So Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm going to have to get this. I'm going to have to get, normally I do these later in the evening because it's quieter around my home. So I think what I'm going to have to do is try to get this done earlier for you guys, like right after. Of course, I am literally 2-3 hours. I'm 2 hours behind these guys. So I'll do what I can to get this out at a decent hour for everyone. And then, because I just don't, I was thinking about it as I was listening to some of them do their openings. And I feel like there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle. There are a lot of different puzzles involved. And I kind of think that the jury is going to spend some time in deliberation. I already said yesterday, I know they're going to have more questions. So I feel like we could at least possibly have, half of Tuesday, if we still, if they're, yeah, it would be half day Tuesday, all day Wednesday in deliberations. I would bet we're not going to get, now I'm not putting money on it, but what I think is going to happen is we're not going to see, I can't see it happening before Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon. I just can't. I can't see them coming up with a verdict before Wednesday, late afternoon. So that's just what I kind of feel like. It's not a prediction. It's just kind of what I feel like. So we'll see what happens. I want to thank everybody that's been following me from the start on this. I really appreciate you. And if you have not seen previous videos, I've gone in every day and tried to kind of take as much of the audio as I can, what I can make sense of. But anyway, I hope that it's been up to par for you guys. If you've enjoyed it, please share it, like it, share it, subscribe. After this trial, the only trial that I foresee myself messing with after this is going to be the Sarah Boone trial, Suitcase Sarah, because I've already kind of dove into that one a little bit, and I feel like a minute. There's another one. Anything that happens with, what's his name? Good old boy, Darrell Brooks, because I've started my channel on that whole thing. I will probably be putting in anything we have of his different trial parts. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, my point was, and I do have one, is that I'm trying to put together some mini documentaries. That's really what I want to do on this channel, is do mini documentaries. And if you guys enjoy those and you are enjoying my voice, then I would really appreciate your feedback. I've only done 2 so far. I'm working on my 3rd one right now. And I really, really, really need some feedback. Please be nice when you're giving critique, but even if it's critique, I need it. I really, really need it. Because if that's the way that's what I want to do. But if you guys on that other end of the screen think that that's not what I should be doing, then I want you to tell me. Please tell me. Okay. So you guys have a blessed weekend. Don't forget your mom on Sunday. It's Mother's Day. I would do anything in my life if I could have one more Mother's Day with my mom. So if you're able to spend time with your mother, go see her, spend time with her, kiss her, and always, always, always tell her how much you appreciate her and love her. And until Tuesday, you guys be safe.